While the West is trying every possible way to suppress Chinese electric vehicle companies, some Chinese companies are actively exploring new opportunities for cooperation. Recently, China's automotive battery giant CATL announced a major cooperation plan. It reached a joint venture agreement with Stellantis Group. According to the agreement, both parties will each contribute 50% to establish a joint venture company in Spain. This company will be responsible for building a large lithium iron phosphate battery factory in Zaragoza, Aragon, Spain. The investment scale of the project is an astonishing 4.038 billion euros. This will also be the first joint venture factory that a Chinese automotive battery company will have in Europe. But as soon as this matter was announced, it immediately attracted widespread attention. In particular, some authoritative experts said that this will undoubtedly further impact the EU's previous plan to restrict the development of Chinese electric vehicle companies through various means. Some people even believe that the strategies previously formulated by the EU may be completely ineffective as a result. So the question is, why do Chinese companies choose to cooperate with European companies to build factories? And how did the EU sanctions face failure? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now let's get into today's topic. Have you heard about it? A while ago, the EU announced a new policy targeting Chinese new energy vehicles, imposing temporary tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. As for why the tariffs were imposed, the reason was that the EU suspected that the Chinese government had subsidized its electric vehicle companies, resulting in extremely low prices for Chinese electric vehicles in the European market, which seriously impacted the market competitiveness of their local auto industry. Then, in October this year, EU member states formally voted to pass a policy. On the basis of the existing 10% tariff, an additional tax of up to 35% would be imposed on Chinese-made electric vehicles, and it was planned to be implemented at the end of October. We can talk about the information on tax rates, among which the EU's additional tax on BYD is 17%, Geely 18.8%, and SAIC as high as 35.3%. As for those electric vehicle manufacturers that were not sampled separately, a unified additional tax of 20.7% was imposed. This means that if Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers want to enter the European market, they may face a super high tariff of up to 45%. However, according to estimates by automotive parts supplier Freya, Chinese automakers have great advantages in R&D, capital expenditure and labor costs, and the cost of producing a small electric vehicle is about 10,000 euros lower than their European counterparts. Obviously, such cost advantage is the reason why Chinese electric vehicles are more competitively priced, so there is no such thing as large subsidies disrupting the market. As for why the EU uses these so-called anti-subsidies to increase tariffs, in fact, anyone with a discerning eye can see that it is following the US's suppression of dialogue. According to my investigation, as early as May this year, the United States just announced a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, and soon the EU followed suit and introduced similar measures. Although Chinese cars account for more than 11% in Europe, it is less than 4% in the United States. So what is the truth behind it? We all know it very well. As the main export market for Chinese electric vehicles, the EU imported 1.55 million electric vehicles from China in 2023, accounting for 40% of China's total electric vehicle exports. Will China just watch this huge market go? In fact, China has no intention of giving up the European market. While the EU imposed sanctions on China's automobile industry, China also launched countermeasures against European pork, brandy, and automobile industries. Faced with such a situation, many EU member states felt the pressure from China and sent representatives to visit China to provide solutions. Until recently, a Chinese automotive battery manufacturer announced a cooperation agreement with a European car company. Then, industry experts said that this might gradually make the EU's sanctions policy lose its effect. So, what is going on? In fact, this breakthrough actually stems from an important cooperation between China's automotive battery manufacturing giant, CATL, and the world-renowned automaker Stellantis. The two parties announced that they would jointly build a battery factory in Spain, with a total investment of up to 4.038 billion euros. According to the terms of the agreement, CATL will invest 1.211 billion euros and jointly hold 50% of the equity of the joint venture with Stellantis Group. The more specific equity distribution is: CATL holds 50%, Stellantis Group holds 40%, and its subsidiary SDLA France holds 10%. In other words, the joint venture is actually controlled by the Chinese company CATL and has the main say. It is worth noting that the core goal of this cooperation is to build a lithium iron phosphate battery manufacturing plant in Zaragoza, Aragon, Spain, in the name of a joint venture. According to the plan of the Stellantis Group, the construction period of this plant is expected to be 4 years, and it is planned to start production at the end of 2026, with an annual production capacity of 50 GWh. At the same time, Stellantis also emphasized that the specific production capacity will depend on the development of the European electric vehicle market and whether the Spanish government and the European Union can continue to provide the necessary support. But many people don't know that the plan of China's CATL and Stellantis to build a joint venture factory has been brewing for more than a year. As early as 2018, Stellantis set a clear goal for its electrification transformation, hoping to establish a competitive advantage in the price range of 25,000 euros and planned to launch a number of low-priced electric vehicles. To achieve this goal, the use of lithium iron phosphate batteries has become the key. Until November 2023, Stellantis began to seek cooperation with China's CATL, with the aim of providing localized lithium iron phosphate battery cells and modules for its electric vehicle production in Europe. However, at that time, CATL's strategic focus was still on the domestic market, so the cooperation plan had been on hold and had not been advanced. This situation did not change until 2024, as the EU's crackdown on China's electric vehicle industry gradually intensified. The joint venture plan proposed by Stellantis just provides Chinese companies with a solution that is not affected by high tariffs. So, how will this project cooperation help China break the EU's sanctions? In fact, the core strategy for Chinese cars to be exported to Europe to avoid high tariffs is to build factories in Europe. In this way, vehicles can be produced and sold directly in Europe, bypassing the restrictions of temporary tariffs. This is not only an effective way to circumvent tariffs, but also paves the way for the long-term development of Chinese car companies in the European market. The cooperation between CATL and European automaker Stellantis provides an important guarantee for this strategy. Since it is a cooperation with local European auto giants, there is naturally no need to worry too much about additional pressure from the government. According to my investigation, the Stellantis Group is headquartered in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and is the fourth largest auto company in the world. In 2023, Stellantis global sales reached 6.17 million vehicles, with net revenue of $198.8 billion and net profit of $19.5 billion. Of course, as a European auto giant, Stellantis has decades of operating experience, a huge sales network, and rich customer resources in Europe. Joining hands with such a partner can also give full play to the complementary resources of both parties. It is worth mentioning that CATL's layout in Europe did not start with this cooperation. As early as 2018, CATL announced that it would build its first European factory in Arnstadt, Thuringia, Germany, and officially started construction in 2019. The total investment in this factory is as high as about 1.8 billion euros, and the initial planned production capacity is 14 GWh. But considering the pressure of the EU's tariff policy, the factory is likely to be further accelerated. Not only that, in August 2022, in order to further develop the European market, CATL announced that it would build a larger battery factory in Debrecen, Hungary. The investment ceiling of the project is 7.3 billion euros, and the planned production capacity is as high as 100 GWh. Today, CATL's three major projects in Europe, the German factory, the Hungarian factory, and the Spanish factory, have a total investment of more than $10.8 billion. What is more noteworthy is that in recent years, more and more Chinese car companies have gradually penetrated into the local market through cooperation with European car companies or directly building factories in Europe. In April this year, Chery Automobile signed a cooperation agreement with Ebro EV Motors of Spain to build a joint venture factory in Spain, and it is expected to start production in the fourth quarter of 2024. Subsequently, Great Wall Motors also launched a factory site selection plan in Europe in 2024. BYD went a step further and announced that it would build a new energy passenger car factory in Hungary, which is planned to be completed and put into operation within 3 years, with an estimated annual production capacity of more than 100,000 vehicles. The French Minister of Finance at the time also publicly stated that if BYD decided to build a factory in France, France would warmly welcome it. From the above information, we can see that Chinese automakers and battery giants have successively built factories in Europe and are also trying to make Europe an all-round automobile manufacturing center. This layout solves the problem of tariff barriers while directly realizing the integration of research and development, production, sales, and services in the battery field in Europe. It is worth noting that in recent years, as many European automakers announced that they would slow down their electrification transformation, the EU has also begun to re-examine the policy of 2035 ban on fuel vehicles. Obviously, Europe is facing difficulties in promoting new energy technologies, and the entry of Chinese automakers has provided them with a solution. By building joint ventures with local European automakers, countries that want to sanction China are also in a dilemma. After all, this kind of cooperation directly affects the interests of their own companies. In order to avoid the risks of the United States, Chinese automakers are still cooperating with many automakers in the U.S. market through the technology licensing model. The most typical case is the cooperation between CATL and Ford Motor. Ford plans to build a battery factory in Michigan, USA, and fully owns it, while CATL provides preparation and operation services and licenses battery patent technology. This model not only avoids the political sensitivity caused by Chinese companies' shareholding in the United States, but also protects CATL's interests in technology output. From this series of actions, it can be seen that Chinese companies have found a flexible and effective strategy to deal with sanctions from European and American countries. So, will sanctions between European and American countries still pose a threat to China? To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.